Oftentimes they're too close to their website. They don't understand like how confusing it is, and just like making it easier for the customers to like buy and go through the customer journey is always a good win. Performance is a major oversight for a lot of these brands, and it's also kind of technical at the same time, so they don't understand how to solve for it.
Hey, this is where I talk to the best drivers of the direct-to-consumer industry, like founders, investors, marketers, CROs, agencies, and dwell into strategies that they've been using to build some great D2C businesses. Let's go on the D2C drive. I'm your host, Ashish Ramamurthy. As you guys are chasing your D2C dream, I got a guy called Chase today in the D2C Drive podcast. What's up? So folks, I kind of like got introduced to Chase 2 weeks back. He runs his agency called as Electric Eye, where he and his team kind of like creates amazing sales machines out of your website. Helps you also take some nice decisions on how do you increase your AOV completely from your website and also from your communications. You also run a podcast as well called as Honest E-commerce. So you guys should also go and listen to what you got to say there. Chase, what's going on? How's your week been? What's going on in the space right now? What's keeping you hot and alive every day?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thanks to everybody that's listening to the podcast as well. There are a lot of podcasts out there, and I'm glad you chose this one to listen to this morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm Chase. What am I doing these days? I'm the co-founder at Electric Eye. What we're doing over there is a lot of migration projects. So we're taking brands off of platforms like Magento, BigCommerce, Squarespace, WooCommerce, bringing them over to Shopify. We've done it a million times. We have an extremely rigid isn't the word. We have a good process, right? You know, DIYing those migrations is usually where people have big mistakes and they regret it. We're also doing a lot of kind of redesigns for brands. So kind of rebranding or, retheming, bringing them up to date on the Online Store 2.0. So that's kind of the project side of the business. And then kind of more what we're going to talk about here today is like the ongoing optimization side of the business is kind of our bread and butter. It's our flagship product, and it is where we get to dive in and do a lot of the fun stuff that we're going to chat about here today. This stuff is really fun. This stuff can help almost every established business. There's always mistakes. I was actually yesterday on Twitter. Alan Burt and I were we were just tweeting back and forth, and he runs an agency called Blue Stout. And he just said something along the lines, he's like, honestly, like 8-figure brands, there's so much low-hanging fruit to help them increase their CRO. It's like because we were having this conversation around whenever a brand wants to go against the findings of like in the data, like what's good, best for them. And he's like, honestly, like some of the time you can just ignore that and go on to the next thing because there's just so much stuff to do for these brands. So I guess maybe that, to answer your question, what's keeping me up at night is doing what's best for the brand while still respecting their aesthetic, right? That's probably what that answer is.
So, being an agency owner, I don't know if you faced the issue of what you feel is best for the brand and what the brand feels is best for them, and how do you come in consensus about it? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's a few ways, right? There's the I'm right, you're wrong way, which never works. Right? Like you're hiring experts usually to help you in areas where you don't have that expertise. Now, these brands, these founders, these teams, they do their best to make their brand and product have to be like presented in the best light. And oftentimes there are choices made that are to elevate the branding that are probably not the best from a conversion perspective. And that you get into these situations where we're talking about like what's best for the brand, and then there's like what you want to do and how you approach those conversations. And it should be a conversation, it shouldn't be an argument. And it shouldn't be us versus them. It should be like, look, here's the data backing up this hypothesis. The hypothesis is this choice that we made, or that your team made, this choice that was made. Someone made this choice. Who cares? I'm not pointing fingers. It has already happened as in the past. There was a choice made we believe that is hindering conversion or AOV or whatever the hell you're trying to solve for. So like there was a choice made, let's test correcting it and see what happens, right? So the first thing is like, let's just test it, see what happens. If we're right, we're right. If we're wrong, we're wrong. And here's the thing about testing. Sometimes it doesn't matter. And then you can just move on with your life, right? And it's like, let's find something that does matter. Or you can approach those situations with data to back up your hypothesis, right? So you can be like, hey, this choice that you made is putting friction in the buying journey. Here are 3 recordings of customers frustrated with how this thing works and can't figure it out, and then they abandon, right? So now you've got data to back up your hypothesis that this choice is putting friction in the process. Or you can come to it with the same type of thing, so not recordings, but maybe results from customer interviews where they're like, oh, that widget on this page confused the heck out of me. So that's how you approach those interesting conversations.
And where does all this data set, do you guys like I don't know, sometimes build it on your own? Like you have already tools which you know is going to solve this problem for you and the brand?
Yeah, I mean, we run a pretty lean ship as far as the tools go. I mean, we're using Google Analytics and we're using Hotjar. And that's where we're getting a lot of the insights.
You've been doing optimizations, you've been doing CRO from, I would say, some period of time. What has changed over from your own agency perspective? What have you seen changing from a CRO? You know, what has brands been doing 2 years down the lane to what brands are doing now, and what you're still seeing that they're not doing?
It's a great question. So I would say 2 years ago and today are roughly the same as far as what we're seeing brands do is like they are for like the 7-figure merchant, which is kind of where our sweet spot is. They usually don't have a full-time developer. They don't have someone that understands the Shopify technology, which is what we're truly best at. And they don't have like a e-commerce expert on their team. They usually have an e-commerce manager who's pretty smart when it comes to a few things, but like they don't have like a stable of people on their team that like understands how all these things play together, right? What we find over and over and over is we run into these situations where brands will approach us and they're like, hey, Chase, we built something really cool over here. We're doing a couple $1 million a year. It's fantastic, we think. But we know in our gut, stuff could be better. What should we do? Right? And we get approached with that all the time. So we kind of have a process in which we work through with these brands just to identify like, here's a bunch of stuff you can do, right? And we call it our Shopify diagnostic, and that starts a lot of our engagements. But I can walk through what we do in that here in a little bit. But back to your questions, like what are these brands doing wrong and what are they doing right? Oftentimes they're too close to their website. They don't understand like how confusing it is. And just like making it easier for the customers to like buy and go through the customer journey is always a good win. Performance is a major oversight for a lot of these brands. And it's also kind of technical at the same time, so they don't understand how to solve for it. So that's always usually something that comes up. I already said navigation, but kind of in line with navigation is sorting and filtering and search are always usually something that can be improved on a direct-to-consumer website. And all this stuff is on the conversion side. And then there's the kind of the AOV lifting side where they're not putting tasteful upsells and cross-sells in the customer journey to try to increase that AOV, try to increase that cart size. So there's always opportunities there as well. We try to dive in as deep as we can, but at the end of the day, it's like these websites are very kind of fluid and they're almost constantly evolving. There's always new things to try, there's always things to optimize. There's always better tools, better solutions. So, one thing that we try to educate clients on is like, your website will probably never be done, and just like get used to it. Right. And especially as you get towards, you start moving into that eight-figure range as a brand, you're going to be getting into a constant iteration and testing mentality, trying to raise your trying to raise your conversion rate and trying to raise your AOV to just squeeze out as much profit as you can, because the higher your AOV, the higher your return on ad spend, and it goes against your contribution margin. So like these are things you really want to do. I was going off on a tangent there. You can see the coffee's kicking in.
No worries. Yeah. So, I'm very interested to know, like, see, usually when I have to build a website, I go, I want to find some inspirations, let's say in Pinterest or wherever it is, and try to find, these amazing looking landing pages and stuff like that, right? I mean, a brand would do that, but from you perspective, you will be like, hey, okay, how is it gonna affect page speed? How is this gonna affect the customer journey? How is this gonna affect so many factors, right? How do you assess that scenario when you look at, building that page? How do you go about that entire process of if there is a new page or if there is a optimization on top of the new existing page? How is that whole thing done?
No, that's a great question. And I think the answer is you'll probably have two pages. You'll have your landing page for your offer, potentially, if you're doing some sort of bundle, or like just for the product itself. And the goal of that landing page is different than if someone just lands on your website and starts browsing. So you're going to have like your normal product page, and then you're going to have your landing page. And they have kind of two different goals. Like one's more for scrolling and education. One's for like this guy's or gals at the top or at the bottom of the funnel. This is a very warm or hot lead. Let's try to convert. So they have two purposes. So then the content and the way that is presented will be a little bit different.
Does it also matter what kind of product you're selling in terms of, are you a CPG brand? Are you selling, clothes? Are you selling electronics, right? Like, do you guys refer to some kind of like benchmarks of like, each category wise landing pages and CRO stuff? Is that something that the brand is also open to listening when it comes to, you guys pitching that?
I mean, benchmarks are kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. Like here, let's just walk through it, right? We've got a brand, they've got a product, and they're converting at 2%. And then you go and look at the benchmarks, and it says that they should be converting at 3%. It's like, cool. There's some opportunity here is all we've learned, but we already knew that we wanted to improve it. But knowing that there is, what does that teach us? It doesn't teach us anything. We still have to go back and do exactly what I'm going to talk about here in a minute. Is we have to go and find ideas, test and fix those things, and just repeat it until we get there. Because knowing the benchmark's higher doesn't change the fact that we're starting with this number. Knowing the benchmark's higher doesn't magically change our number. It just gives, it just like shows us where we want to get to. And a benchmark is just that. It's an average, right? So it could be higher than that. And there are people out there that's lower than that. I think looking at benchmarks and looking at competitors is a great way to come up potentially with some ideas. But then you still have to go back and do the work. You still have to fix, test. It's like, that's my feelings on benchmarks.
I'm sure maybe some of the folks, and check out Shopify themes, and there's a bunch of people who sell Shopify themes and stuff like that. Do you guys like have your own theme database or library that you refer to, or you kind of like, don't like the idea of people coming?
Oh, that's a great question.
And saying that, what, I want this theme. What do you guys think about it? I'm very curious to know, because I'm trying to go into the shoes of somebody as a brand. What would they do and coming at you, right?
Yeah. So a few years ago, and this is like well before Shopify launched Online Store 2.0, right? That is like the inflection point. That's where things changed. That's where things changed for the better, actually, for Shopify merchants. Before that, we did have our own framework. It allowed us to rapidly iterate pages and websites for our clients, but we were building very custom themes. Now, the advantage of very custom themes is they're so fast. They are ridiculously fast. And they're tailor-made to kind of the brand and the needs of the customer, right? So the user experience is usually elevated as well. But, there are some cons, and I'm not going to lie. It's a more expensive investment. It takes more time. It takes more energy. It takes more budget. Like, let's be honest. This custom always comes with a price tag. And you only get what you ask for. Like, no one's throwing in extra stuff into something that's custom made. So you always run into situations where down the line you need to add a new feature or you want a new section or blah, 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 blah. And these things aren't just in the theme, right? Now, why did we go custom with these things? It was just because back before Online Store 2.0, adding sections to pages that weren't the home page was not a thing. So to build out more dynamic content on product pages, to elevate other pages on the web store, you had to do it custom and you had to do it through meta fields. And the only way to really do that was to do it pretty dang custom. So that was the route we were doing back then. Then comes Online Store 2.0. And then Shopify doubles down on performance, right? So they kind of do two things that are a little eye-opening, right? And it's now you've got these themes that are out there that they're not custom, but they're like an amazing jump off point for these brands, and it helps them kind of circumvent a lot of work. And if you start there, you're basically cutting off a month of design and development, and you can then tailor it to your brand, to your heart's content. Also, with doing that, you've got all of these features and functionality already built in that you probably wouldn't get on a project like on another custom project. And then, another reason why we used to not particularly be a fan of these themes was the performance the metrics were kind of bad. But then Shopify came and said like, hey, we're putting the performance scores on these themes, so everybody started to make their themes lightning fast, so that kind of wasn't an issue anymore. So for, the 7-figure merchant, which is a fancy way of saying like $1 million to $10 million a year merchant, right? Like, I think if you're going from 0 to 1 million, you're a startup in my opinion. And pick an off-the-shelf theme, don't even customize it, focus on sales, right? If you're around like 1 to 10, like then you can start in and you can start playing with these themes and you can use a team, a designer developer, and like start modifying something that's existing to better fit your brand. I think people get really caught up in the design of their website, which is, look here, I've looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of websites, and some of the dumbest, ugliest websites are converting at double your conversion rate, right? So like, sure, you can have a website that looks like the next Apple, but if you don't have the marketing funnel to drive traffic to it, like you're kind of missing the point.
I
digress.
I would have thrown a mic drop glass at your eyes and do that stuff.
Yeah, sure. So these days we're usually starting with a store from the Shopify theme store specifically, only in the theme store. We don't use anything from any other marketplace. It's got to be within the Shopify theme stores. We have quite a few that we prefer. If we haven't used it before, we question. I don't know. We'll talk to the brand. Like everything's unique, everything's different. But like most of the time, the brands are like come to us and ask us like, hey, like what would you recommend? And we'll usually be like, this one seems like the best for what you want to do, because all these themes do have like little quirks to them and little things that make it better for certain brands and customers and products. So yeah, usually we're like recommending a theme if that's the type of project we're doing.
I'm sure if you're working with 7-figure or 8-figure brands, like they would have built their website and they would have come to you because they're facing tons of issues. So I want to step into talking about a bit of your auditing system, especially for a 7-figure, 8-figure brand, because they would have tried a lot of stuff to come where they are and get those conversions up, but they're struggling in few things. What are the few things that they struggle, especially at that level? And when you look at the data, from GA or a jar, what are some of the things that you want to tell? Like maybe is it those abandons which is having more issues, or is it their checkout, or is it the dropouts which is happening when somebody comes on a product page, reads the review but drops off? Like what are those factors that you have seen really getting those customers out of the table, right, and not coming back again?
Absolutely. So I'm going to walk you through kind of what we do during our audit, that Shopify diagnostic thing. But before that, I'm going to jump in and I'm just going to give a quick crash course in CRO, conversion rate optimization, for the listeners, just to make sure that we understand and are using the same language to describe what I'm talking about here. So conversion rate optimization, first and foremost, is named wrong. That is it's such a bad name for what the hell we're doing here. So a conversion on your website is getting a user to take the action you want them to take. Now, for an e-commerce store, that's typically purchase, right? So converting it's right. So it's kind of like, oh wait, so that is named right there. But no, like there are other actions you can get a customer to take or a user to take. You can get them to click on a link. You can get them to submit a form. You can get them to watch a video. Like any action that is trackable, like it could be something that you want them to optimize for. So if the conversion could be that they watched a video, right? So conversion rate optimization is a bit of like a weird name for a larger type of optimization that you can do on your website. But, you know, a lot of people do just default to, they want to optimize for conversion. They want to optimize for sales. Another thing that people often optimize for is average order value, right? So that also falls under conversion rate optimization. So it's named wrong. Just putting that out there. But let's get in here. So with conversion rate optimization, here's the basis. I already said this before. Like, why even look at benchmarks? You start where you are. Who cares what you're like? It doesn't change anything. You're starting where you are. You make changes to your website. They either work or they don't work, and then you do it again. Like that's it. That's the process of CRO. You get an idea, you fix, you test it, and then you repeat. So let's talk about getting ideas because they come from a lot of places. So there's the stuff we know. This is called heuristic insights. This is anecdotal insights, best practices, and expert opinions, right? This is stuff in my brain. As my CRO mentor, Josh Frank, says, this is fixing the stuff we believe should be fixed. Everybody pretty much does this. Sometimes they don't listen to advice, but this is like that top level stuff. And this is a lot of stuff we're going to find in our audit, right? Especially the UX audit portion. This is top level stuff. This is visual. These are things that we know just from doing this forever, right? Then we dive a little bit deeper. There's what the data tells us. This is quantitative insights. This is using data and analytics. This is where the technical insights and the tracking insights, heat maps, user recordings, performance reviews. This will give us an idea of things to test or fix. This is a bit more uncommon, especially like the heat maps and user recording stuff. People are usually not doing that at all. And then you go deeper, even more, and this is what your customers tell us. This is qualitative insights. This is where your customers are literally telling you what's wrong from surveys, user testing, from visitor polls, from customer interviews. Like, this is where the money is. This is also the area in which the language your customers are using about the product and their fears, uncertainties, and doubts about the product or your offer can drive the best copy to use at the top of the funnel in ads and on landing pages and on your product page to help raise conversions as well. So I'll run through that real quick again. There's three types of insights you're looking for: heuristic, quantitative, and qualitative. There's the stuff we know, there's the stuff the data tells us, there's the stuff your customers tell us. So you do that stuff, right? You know, there's a lot of things to do in each of those categories. I'm just being pretty quick here because we don't have, I'm not giving you a dissertation on this. So you make a list of stuff, you prioritize them. There's a method out there that we like to use called the ICE method. Impact, ease, and certainty are what they stand for. You can find a Google sheet out there that'll help you do the ICE method. It's a pretty cool little tool. But basically, you got like 20 ideas, right? And you put them in here, and then you rank them, and then just with this, it'll help you just sort them by like, oh, these ones are probably going to be the best to work on first. So you do that. You got a list of things. Now what's next? You test, right? Some things are pretty obvious and they don't need testing, right? You find something that's broken on your website, just fix it. You don't need to test it. Like, it's broken, fix it, done. But sometimes it's not that easy, and you want to run a split test. Here's another thing that a lot of people do. They say test everything. Here's a secret. That's dumb. You don't have the time to test everything. Test multiple things at once, right? If you're going to make changes to the product page, make all those changes at once and then run a split test. So you got your control and your variant. Do that. Like, that is a better use of your time. And if you don't see a big increase in conversion rate, maybe you missed the mark, but you probably will just like by doing that, right? So that's kind of the CRO basics and how you do stuff. All right. So at Electric Eye, we run a Shopify diagnostic at the beginning of most of our projects where people are like, we want it to get better. You're the expert. Tell us what to do. And we're like, okay. So it's our Shopify diagnostic consists of 3 audits and then some like strategy. And so we're going to run a UX audit, we're going to run a performance audit, and we're going to run an analytics audit, right? So the UX audit is we're going to walk through the customer journey of the store on homepage and mobile. So we're going to look at their homepage, their collection page, their product page, their side cart or cart and checkout page. And we're basically ignoring everything else because they don't really make money. Like those are the pages we're looking for. We'll potentially look at a landing page if there's sending a shit ton of traffic to like one specific page. But those are basically the pages we're looking at, and we're going to do it on desktop and mobile. And within the UX audit, this is where we're using kind of our opinion, our expert opinion, the heuristic insights, as you will. And we're looking for things that A, we believe could be causing friction, or B, things that they didn't think about, like oversights on their part. So it could be like, oh, we're on your products page, and I'm using an example here, but it's a basics company. They're selling a lot of t-shirts, men's t-shirts, right? We'll make it simple. And they sell a lot of basics, and it's like, oh, for $17 you get the one shirt, but then you got a bundle, right? For $36 you can get 3. It's like almost buy 2 get 1 free at that price point, right? But on the products page, they aren't going for the upsell. So like on your add to cart button on the product page, there's or next to it or below it or above it, it's like, oh, like buy 3 and save. Like they should have an upsell there, just right there on the product page to try to raise that AOV. That's not necessarily going to raise the conversion rate, but it's going to raise the AOV, right? Mm-hmm. And then additionally, say they add that product to the cart. In the side cart, they should be offering that same offer. That's like, hey, you have 1 in here. If you add another one, you're gonna get another one for free. Like they should have that upsell in the cart right there, nudging them. So those are the things we're looking for on these. We're looking for things that we know are putting friction in the process. Like we're on the collection page, and they've got a pretty robust product selection with different sizes and colors and fabrics, but there's no filtering. So I just have to scroll through this massive list of products to find the one that will suit my needs. I'm a lazy internet shopper. I'm going to go to your competitor that has filters and find the thing I need faster and check out over there. So we're looking for things that are probably putting friction in, and we're looking for things that they probably haven't thought of. Within this audit, we write all that stuff down. And we talk about it. And then we do it again on mobile, right? And there's some opportunity there. So that's like the UX audit. So the next one is the performance audit. This one's a little more technical and boring, but there's 2 things we're going to do here is we're going to, 3 things technically. We're going to look at the website's, the theme's code, right? And we're going to see how old the theme is, how it's handling some certain technical mumbo jumbo, and like how easy it will be to speed up the site if that's something we want to do. And there's also kind of a secondary goal in here, and it's to look at like the underlying kind of like state of the code, right? So imagine this would be comparable to like you bought a house and you want to get it upgraded, right? And a contractor is going to come over and he's like, I got to take a few walls off here and look behind it and see what I'm dealing with. This is what we're doing. We're trying to see what's going on under there. So sometimes we get in and we're like, whoa, like this is a nightmare. This is a spaghetti mess of code. And we tell them, we're like, look, this isn't really a performance thing. We're like what this is you got a mess, and it's going to be a money pit if you invest in this theme to try to fix all the stuff we're pointing out, or even hire anyone else to fix it, just because of the way this is built and strung together with duct tape and super glue. Like it's going to make any changes you make just harder, because they'll probably, it's a domino effect. Something breaks and then you're chasing stuff all over the place, right? And that's something people don't like to hear often, but it happens more than you think. But if that's not the case, right, we get in there, it's like whatever. It's like, cool, now we have an understanding of what this code structure is and how fast we can make this website. And then we're also going to run a speed test on a few different websites. So obviously on the back end of Shopify, you can see it there, but we're going to run one through Lighthouse, Pingdom, and GT Metrics are the 3, I believe, that we use, because they give a little bit of different results, but we kind of just glean from it what we can most of the time. Oversized images, and they're not caching certain things, and there's like way too many calls. And the way too many calls is usually because, and this goes back to that like spaghetti code, is the merchant or whomever was in charge of the website has over the past 2 years since this theme's been updated, installed and uninstalled about 40 different apps. And all those apps install code on the website. And when you press uninstall, the app immediately loses access to that store. And so the app cannot, per terms of service with Shopify, it cannot remove the code for you. That code's still on your website. So that JavaScript file that it's calling to do the function of that app is still embedded in your theme somewhere, and it's being loaded when your website loads. So you do that 40 times, you've essentially made your website 40 times slower. There's a very generic...
And there goes your everything.
Oh yeah, there's an absolute 1,000%, like, this is a fact. There's a direct correlation between how fast your website is and how high your conversion rate is. There are numerous studies out there on the internet. Just go Google it. That's a thing. So the performance element is kind of like, we're usually like, yeah, we know there's going to be performance stuff to do here, and we don't skate over it. We just go like, yeah, there's opportunity here, and like we can dive in a little bit deeper in a second to like show you what the specific things you need to do. But like, within looking at that theme stuff, it's like, if we get in and look at a theme, we realize it's not an online store 2.0 theme. We're usually just like, here's the recommendation. It's time to upgrade. Like, not only will it make your site faster, it'll get rid of all the spaghetti code, and it will also allow you to make any further customizations that are going to be pointed out from the UX audit, easier in the future, right? So that's kind of some stuff that you find out there in the performance audit. And we're also looking at the app choices in the performance audit. It's very, sometimes, like, I've been on a website where they just had like 76 apps installed. I'm like, do you use all these? And they're like, no, they're just not charging us, so we didn't uninstall them. I was like, what are you doing? Like, get rid of these things. Like, so sometimes you get, and then you ask them like, what is it for? You'll oftentimes find apps that are doing things other apps already do. They just didn't know that the app had that feature, or they have apps that do things that are built into the theme. So the goal with all apps is you have the least amount of apps possible, and when you make a choice to use an app, it better serve a purpose. It better be functionality that isn't easy to replicate, right? Because like, let's be like example, like, we're not rebuilding Klaviyo. That's not happening. But I can rebuild a free shipping progress bar. Like, that's pretty straightforward. So we have some conversations around that stuff, and all of those things very much speed up your website. And another site that we like to look at for the big shout out to Speed Booster. That's a fun one. And they do mitigate some of those things as well. So that's often something that we do when we're working with clients. Like, we sometimes just do the audit, and then they go off and do it with their team. And I'm like, yeah, just go use Speed Booster for the performance stuff. The analytics audit's a little bit more straightforward and boring, right? Like, everybody should be moving over to GA4, and if they're not on GA4, we're not even running an audit. It's like, look, there's that, go do that. Like, just set that up. It's not extremely difficult. But then we do have an audit that we run that's automated that looks at about 30 different points, and gives us a quick kind of like hit list of like, all right, these things should be fixed.
You don't help people migrate. You're just like, oh, go forward and upgrade.
We can, if they would like to engage us to do that after the fact. The audit it's a diagnostic tool, right? It's like, here's everything that's wrong. If you'd like us to fix it, like, we can afterwards, but it's not, we're not remediating within the diagnostic itself. Yeah, but it's the upsell. Of course, we're gonna try to fix it if you want us to fix it.
Yeah. Folks, you're looking at your Shopify store maybe at a very fundamental level. Listen to what Chase did. If you want to make sure that you optimize for purchases, let me bring that out now. Go and hit Chase right now. All right. So let me go to all of the things that you've been talking about. You mentioned one common thread, that I'm not optimizing for conversions, but I'm optimizing for AOV, right? So now your website is the only place that you can look to optimize for AOV, and there's a bunch of things that you need to do post-purchase and stuff like that. right, when you remarket and come back, but that's another topic to talk about. What are the things that you usually do for your clients in terms of increasing the AOV from their storefront?
Yeah, on the storefront, I kind of alluded to it when we were talking through the customer journey, but there are a lot of areas for upsell, cross-sell, and bundle.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's something that I see that's a fun one is if you do have, well, first of all, if you don't have a bundle, figure out how to do a bundle for your products. That will increase your AOV. Depending on what products you have, though, then you can get a little more fancy with it. The bundling solutions out there in the Shopify ecosystem, some of they're just like, they aren't good a lot of the times. So you just building one with them, if that's what you need to do, you can do that. But then like going custom is sometimes a little bit better on the bundling side of things, just to make that user experience better. And trust me, if the user experience is better with building this bundle, like making a bundle builder or custom product selector for these things, you're going to get a higher conversion rate. But yeah, building those bundles is super fun. And then you can like, something cool I see some brands doing is on their collection page, it'll be like t-shirt, and then they'll like put the bundle like in the collection page grid. Like that's a cool little hack.
I've also seen a lot of people enable your customers to build the bundle.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So those build a bundle things, it's like, it depends on how it's powered. I wish I really want there to be a good bundling solution out there so I can recommend it, but I've yet to come across one that doesn't innately have some weird challenges to it. Usually just find the best one for the job and you call it a day. But yeah, so bundling is great. And then, so upsells and cross sells, right? So an upsell is I'm buying one t-shirt and you try to sell me 3 t-shirts, right? That's an upsell. And so there are areas of opportunity to do that, obviously on the product page, on the cart page, in checkout, and post-purchase. All of those things, you buy more. Actually, I bought a single supplement the other day off a website, and post-purchase, they're like, hey, we'll sell you the second one for 50% off. It's the only time you're going to get this offer. And I was like, well, fine, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they got me. So there's areas to do that. And earlier to your point, like you can even send these like upsell offers like after the fact. Like I've seen some brands that are really smart. They're like, your product hasn't shipped yet. Buy right now. We'll add another one right here. Like to your, so there you can do that like through email or text automations as well.
Yeah. I've also seen a lot of people, when you send those order confirmation, your order is coming, every time the customer goes and checks out, there's something always happening out there. And even post-purchase, when you're asking for feedback, something always happening out there. That's pretty smart,
Yeah, there's an entire app ecosystem dedicated to merchandising all these other touch points. And then, so the upsells things are definitely towards the AOV side of things, not necessarily conversion. And then the cross-sell is kind of the same thing, right? And these can take place all over the place, but it's like, and this is something that when it's usually like a situation where you have like a flagship product and then you have like products that support it. So maybe you have like a cooler is your product, like a cool beach cooler. And then the cross-sell could be like, an insert for the cooler to help you keep separated stuff. I don't know. I don't own a cooler. Or maybe it's like a bag for your cooler. Who would put a cooler in a bag? I don't know. But that could be an upsell, right? That could be a cross-sell. So you're buying the one thing, and then that triggers some sort of logic to try to sell them the other thing, right? All right. So like if I buy a phone, the cross-sell would be a case for my phone because it makes
or an earphone, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. So there are apps to do that in the storefront. Basically, if I have to think about it, it has to know behavior. It has to know what customer is doing on the website right now in order to really be smart enough to cross-sell. Are those apps existing right now which can do that?
Yeah, I know Shopify has a recommendation engine that's built in, but just like with everything that's built into Shopify, it does the job, and that's it. Is kind of the way that I like to describe a lot of these features that Shopify has, and they even say it themselves. It's like, if you want a more robust functionality, go out there into the ecosystem, like there's someone else paying for it. Because Shopify, at the end of the day, they are very true to the core product of that. We just sell stuff online and we help you with the storefront. Like, we're not going into these weird edge case rabbit holes. That's what our app ecosystem's for.
Awesome. Thanks, Chase. I think already myself, I learned a lot today, and I hope a lot of people who are here look at this as one of the best that they've been hearing today or this week. So any last words when it comes to talking about, optimizing for purchases before we end this?
Yeah. If you don't have it installed yet, install Hotjar and sit down and review it weekly. It will help you find where people are annoyed with your website. If you like listening to my opinion on e-commerce and all this stuff, please check out our podcast, Honest E-commerce. You can go to honestecommerce.co. I interview store founders every week, usually. There's some bonus episodes that come out with subject matter experts all the time. So that's where I'm kind of putting all the content out there. And then if you like what we have to say and you want to talk to us about potentially working together, you can just reach out, electriceye.io.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chase, for driving in. Folks, keep eye on Electric Eye. That's all I have to say for today. Have a great week, everyone. Go and fix your storefront right now.